Adobe software, we're going to generate a 640 Twitter size GIF using video footage. And I'll go over that content and how to basically create that. Obviously, these are old files as far as the Zoom meetings from a prior semester. These will get replaced with today's lesson. And let's just start off with the birth of what this is as an animated GIF. What exactly, where did it come from? And what are some examples that they do? Let's get past the web ads.
GIFs were established as a free and sort of like usable part of the web.
GIFs are great because it's a low barrier of entry. Anybody can play around and it's fun.
The animated GIF for us was just a photograph that could move and existed forever.
This is a photograph that is still alive, and so we were already thinking beyond the limitations of the file name.
An animated GIF is an image that's been encoded using the graphics interchange format, where it has multiple frames encoded into a single image file, and a web browser or other piece of software will play those images back in animated sequence automatically. The original GIF specification came out in 1987. Early example of GIFs that you see are flames. Like, flames are very popular, and the waving American flag is all over the place. Most notoriously is the under construction GIF. But then by the time you get to like 95, 96, you've got the release of the Netscape browser and these web browsers that can automatically animate them. And all of a sudden you see this new spike in popularity. But following that, there's this sudden division between the Web 1.0 of the 70s and 80s and 90s, and then Web 2.0 of like the 2000s moving forward. So the idea of using GIFs becomes way less fashionable. But around 2007, 2008, popularity is swinging back up. People start to realize that you can use GIFs for tons of different things. Like now that we're in 2011, 2012, there's more GIFs online, but you also have way more places to put them. Things like Reddit and Tumblr, WordPress, even like Twitter to a certain degree. So you're seeing actually this like postmodern GIFs. And the tools for GIF creation are becoming more widespread.
GIFs can be anything, but what unites GIFs is that they're short and they are something that most Tumblr users can create themselves. People are sharing more, and I think Tumblr definitely has a part of that. Humans really like repetition. We feel comfortable with it. And sometimes just the longer you watch something, the funnier it gets, or it'll actually change meanings. You have the glitch art, you have pixel art, TV movies, and you have stuff that you can't even really categorize. I think it's mostly on people driving the form, definitely, because it enhances their online persona. Just being able to make some of those makes you so cool. It's uncharted territory right now. And I think really anything has the possibility, the potential of being an art form. But certainly around animated GIFs, we've seen a transformation. We've seen them go from just people taking TV shows. We've seen people making original stuff with them. Mashups between video games and movie characters and even Tumblr memes. I think there's other new art forms waiting to be discovered in there that we just haven't figured out yet.
So we were doing fashion editorials, and that's all in magazines and things like that. And the fashion world really didn't latch on to the internet. So we wanted to push that.
It makes sense that the web is there. Why put a still picture online? The image can now move.
So instead of making still pictures, you would make animated pictures, and they would just go on infinitely forever.
Everyone always describes our work as creepy.
What's creepy about it?
But our work is very playful. So, I mean, I think the two biggest inspirations is one, the web. We work off of memes, and memes are in our work.
They're just a kid making something funny with their friend and tossing it up online because they can.
That's where the best memes come from, you know?
Yeah.
It's accidents. But besides that, video games.
It lends itself to like video game culture, like playing a game and, you know, blowing people up on the moon and slaying dragons and things like that. It's just this idea that you could be anything and
You can become
go
anyone.
anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, these are possible in games.
We get bored really, really quick. And it's always about doing the next thing in technology. And it used to be that art was in museums on walls. And now all of a sudden with this thing of the web and art on screens, all of a sudden you go to the MoMA and there's a screen with art on it. So we just want to be there.
I think there's opportunities with this kind of hybrid medium to show people something they've never seen before, to have these moments that can just exist forever.
It's like this little magical warp of time. We could live within a moment within that moment, like to dream of something and then create it in a camera and share it with people and let them dream with you just for a moment.
It allows a moment to live on, and there's something kind of fascinating about that.
Whatever that one thing is that is alive is what your eye is going to go to. It sets the emotional impact of what the cinematograph will be.
It's a big creative decision for us, like what moment to focus on.
We have a cinematograph called Anna Sees Everything. She's watching the show and it's kind of like a little portrait of her. This is what she does for a living.
So like watching the footage of Bill Cunningham, he didn't take a picture of every model that walks by.
When he likes something, he likes it and he shoots it. And when he doesn't, he doesn't, and he doesn't even think about it.
So like we get to learn something, and watching somebody for hours on end while we work on it, we understand them.
It's so voyeuristic. You look, then you feel like you should look away, but then you can watch it, and so then you can watch it some more, and it's like, oh.
The simplicity of it, I feel, is really beautiful, and we see it as an evolution of photography. If you think of all the ways that photography is displayed, these are areas that we want to go into.
There's little parts of it that are alive, and you can choose to engage in depth into the art, or you can choose to just glance at it and it's there as if it's a photograph.
And it's essentially something you've never seen before.
Who are those people for whom like they think in GIFs or like they almost speak in GIFs? And I think once you get to that point, yeah, like sure, it's art.
The idea of art has changed.
And we've always seen what we can get away with. It's fun.
When we started making these, we were calling them animated GIFs, but it was so much more than that.
It's just too new, and I love being a part of this at a time when we're just figuring it out.
We should say GIF.
It's not a GIF, it's a GIF.
It's a GIF.
GIF is how I learned it first.
The founder of the format of GIF, the CompuServe guy,
This is ancient internet history here.
he said, choosy developers choose GIF, like the peanut butter.
We can talk about why you should say GIF because it doesn't sound like peanut butter.
Let's find this guy. My understanding is that this guy prefers GIF.
So you gotta represent for the creator,
I say we gotta go with the inventor of the format.
Giraffics.
Everyone says GIF.
It's GIF.
All right. It's a very cool kind of introduction to the history of what the GIFs or GIFs are. And it's kind of neat to see that because you can see that the history of it, but yet the potential of it, especially coming from, big New York City international GIF artists, and that there you can actually be a GIF artist now. A lot of magazines, a lot of websites, a lot of companies are actually hiring and looking for it. Now, I've got this simple tutorial here, how to make animated GIFs in Photoshop. You're welcome to follow that. That is not mine. That is just a link to somebody else's. I'm going to walk us through the process, of course. And again, even how to export a GIF from After Effects. But let's just talk about, again, some of these other links like, 50 of the best GIFs. Obviously, there are entire websites dedicated to this now. Jiffy, for example. And if I go into this, you can go into, again, reactions. You can go and explore the 50 of GIFs. You see a lot of these are video-based, but there's also whole categories that are animation-based. And it just shows you the potential of what these GIFs are. Most of you have seen these, but you've never realized really that it is its own little format of art. And it's memes, it's animatable little stickers, it's greetings. There's illustration and design involved, not just photography, not just video. So it kind of bridges that whole gap of everything we're kind of talking about here in the realm of the GIFs. I'm not going to get any more detail into that. But also, you can dive into the wonderful world of cinemagraphs. And this is just another link to a video that kind of talks about this kind of magical way of freeze framing video so that you're basically either making the background be static and having the foreground or a character animate in a loop, or vice versa. It's the background that's freeze framed or animated, and then your subject matter in the front is frozen in time. or little parts of it. All right. So here you see just some examples of what's out there. Now, if you're going to look and search for GIFs, remember we could always do an image search in Google here. And let's just say something like cat GIF or something like that. And what you do when you do that is you get all these that are going to be GIF. Now, remember, GIF can also just be a still, but it's become to a point that because you can embed animation in here, because you can use film and footage, that you'll see what a GIF does when you do it. You see it plays back. So really, this is only about 2 or 3 images here to get that loopable animation. Let's see here. Obviously, here's the neon cat, right? Probably one of the most popular GIFs out there. And this is the one that recently sold as an NFT, non-fungible token, for $800,000. And it's just 3, maybe 4, looking here, 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 pictures played back in a loop. So you can know kind of how to do this if we were to animate this inside of After Effects. I'm going to show you how to do this even in Photoshop. Similarly, a lot of illustrators are moving to this. So you see, we basically have about 3 pictures there, and it just loops and loops and loops. You can also go with videos. Seeing this plays. Now see that one. Oh, there it is. See? Took a while to load that. And what you notice with a lot of these, you typically have is a start and an end that loops back to the start. So you get a smooth transition. And again, tons and tons from films, from movies, animations, memes, video versions where they've taken the video and converted it to a GIF. So it's just got a little more impact than just a basic video. Now, one thing you're going to notice with the video versions, the cinemagraphs especially, is typically you want to use a tripod and your subject should be standing fairly still, kind of like we talked about with the visual effects in Premiere Pro. If you're doing green screen or something like that, it's just easier to kind of think that way. If your subject is being filmed using a tripod, then you can actually easily create it. Or even here, kind of like the dog on the moped, you're animating, obviously, your character, and then the background is looped as well. So again, you get a seamless loop. So tons of samples out there. One of my favorite even is, I think it's called Arms or Doodle. Let's see. Yeah, where you get these GIFs where they're taking video footage and frame by frame adding things like arms or eyeballs, see? And other props. So it's a little bit of Photoshop, see? It's a little bit of Photoshop. It's a little bit of After Effects and animation. Yes, the funny part here of the emu doodles. So it's a little bit of, like I said, flip book animation, but you're drawing over the pictures to create that animation. And this one's, so I say, not all of them. Yeah, again, you get this where you add eyeballs to things, the armless dog, famous GIF. And you notice even with some of these GIFs, you see the level of compression that's happened, where they've added dithering, because again, the GIF has difficulty handling all those colors sometimes. So it kind of simplifies things down in a limited web color basis. And you can have, tons of fun. Let's see, here you go, see? So you can see the potential. I know most of you may have not identified GIFs at the time, but now you look at these videos here and you see all these memes and all this really viral content that is actually animated GIFs. It's adding some spaghetti arms to things. So very cool. So again, if you think about the first part of the assignment, which is animation or an animated GIF, you're going to be working with animating frame by frame. This is probably one of the most common ones here, the animated banana, which is exactly, I believe it's 3 drawings in a loop. And you can see how viral this could actually be. I mean, look at all the animated GIFs here just with the banana as a theme. All right, so go back here. And what I'm going to start with here, though, is just talking about using Photoshop to generate GIFs. So I'm going to open up Photoshop here. And just like we've seen so far, I'm going to go with new file because the project clearly says we want a 640 by 640 at 72 DPI, right? Because we're making this for the internet content. These are not print ready. These don't have to be camera ready, so they don't have to be 300. They don't need to be 150. They could be 72. RGB, because we're building this for the internet to play in a browser. And we can leave it as a white background for now and just hit create. So we get our square little format. Doesn't have to be, obviously, but that's what I'm looking for. So I might as well make a screen. And you can see right now, I simply just have a background. Now, the secret of making GIFs work is dealing with those layers, building the composition. If things are on different layers, they can then animate as different layers. So one of the things we're going to do before we even create all these multiple layers here is I'm actually going to change to a different window setting, okay? And what I'm going to add at the bottom is a timeline. And you see by doing that, it creates a timeline just like we saw in After Effects and in Premiere. Well, think about what you can do now. Now that you know you can create a timeline inside of Photoshop, you can think about working with film and animation. And you see the default is a frame animation, but there's also a video timeline. I'll talk about the video timeline probably next week. For now, I'm just going to focus on a frame animation. Create it. And you see what it does is it literally creates a frame or a cell. It says no delay, 0.1 second, 0.2 seconds, 1 second, right? Or other, or I could say 0. I'm just going to say 0.1 seconds for beginnings here. I can have this setting for playback once, 3 times, or forever. I'm just going to leave it on forever. And I get some play buttons here, which I'll get to in a moment. I get this option here with this plus, which actually duplicates the previous frame. And I got a trash can. Now, the way this basically works, or the best way to think about working this, is before I go and add all these frames, think about the frames at the bottom like animated cells, like the old Disney would use, or Warner Brothers, or think of them like pages in a flip book. So what we want to do is we're going to use the basic layers we create to designate what will be visible or not visible throughout the frames down below. So I'm going to start off with just traditional drawing frames. So to do that, let me see if I can make this just a little bit bigger here. Okay, so this is going to be my background. What's what I'm going to do with my background? I'm going to grab a simple brush. So again, think about drawing a flipbook page. Okay, black ink, and I'm just going to draw a cliff and a floor. Nothing fancy about it, right? Just a cliff and a floor. I'm now going to create a new layer. And this first layer, go ahead and change the size of the brush. And I'll just pick a color. Not really important. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to designate a bouncing ball. Now, if I want to here, I could if you know anything about basic animation, sometimes one of the easiest things you can do, let me just do this, just kind of cheat here, okay, is I'm going to basically have is known as an animation curve, right? Because everything follows a curve. And so this is going to be my path of animation off screen. I'm going to go ahead and make that be less visible, and I'm going to lock it. You can even change that and say basically, delete this, right? Because I'm just using it as a guide. Go ahead and make a new layer. And now I'm going to go and designate my ball, or again, any character or anything we want to kind of create here. And what I'm going to do with layer 1 is I'm just going to have this ball peeking, just peeking. New layer, ball's going to move over a little bit. New layer, ball's going to move in a little bit further. New layer, ball's going to move to the edge. New layer, ball's going to stop. New layer. And watch what I'm going to do here. Let me go ahead and turn these off right now because I don't really need them. I can come back and turn on the eyeball later. But this ball is going to be a little different because I'm going to squash it, right? Squash and stretch. Give this ball a little bit of attitude. Let's go ahead and create a new one. It's now going to leap into the air, speed up to its apex, slow down, and whenever things are moving slowly, they require more drawings. And when things start to speed up, they require less drawings. So you see now he's going to speed towards the ground, increasing its speed so there's more space until it is here. Go ahead and hide those. And I'm now going to take that one, see, squash it down. To make a new layer now. And now start to go back up into the air. Again, when I hit the apex, things are slowing down, so that makes less movement until it starts to increase with gravity and rapidly approach the ground. Once again, and T, just allow me to squash it. New layer. And so in order to create the illusion of movement, again, whether it's, stick fighters or an animated face or a character, I'm just creating a new layer for every piece, every frame. A little less stretch. And making a new layer to get the illusion of movement. And just off screen. Okay. So if I go back and activate the eyeballs for all my layers. Okay, now I can come and take my delete this and delete it. So I don't need it, that was just a guide. Now we get into the magic of the illusion of movement. So again, how do you get the illusion of movement in a flip book? You draw a picture on every page, right? And then you flip through it to reveal the next page, the next page, the next page. Similarly, if I'm going to do the old cell-based animation, I draw pictures on top of themselves, right? Multiple pages. I put one in front of a camera, take a picture, remove that frame, put the next frame in, take a picture, remove that, take the next one. Here, we're going to do that illusion though, but we're going to do it with just using the eyeball. Well, I'm just going to come here and now turn off all my eyeballs except for the background. So the process here is frame one or cell one down in the bottom corner here is going to only have the background. Watch how simple this is. New frame, turn on, so it's just peeking. New frame, turn on, turn off the eyeball. New frame, turn on, turn off. New frame, turn on, turn off, and just repeating this process. Turning frames on and off. Pretty simple. So when I show this to students that you can literally use Photoshop as an animation software, drawing frame by frame animation, they kind of, it blows their mind because they're like, you mean I don't need, fancy drawing tables. I don't need fancy animation software. No, you don't. In fact, you get all the great benefits of Photoshop and the tools of Photoshop to get the results of even fancier animation packages. I mean, I've recently just saw a video where this popular animator on YouTube and so on, he actually did the same process using PowerPoint, where again, you're using slides, right, to do the same kind of process, and then you play them back at whatever frame rate you're trying to animate to. And usually, when you animate, you require about 12 frames per second. That's kind of the minimum. New frame, eyeball on, eyeball off. New frame, eyeball on, eyeball off. New frame, eyeball on, eyeball off. New frame, everything off. Watch how cool this is now. Now again, I'm looping forever at 0.1 second delay. Watch when I hit play now. Do that? The illusion of movement. Now, there's more I could play around with this. For example, I could play around with certain types of delays. Like if that's too slow, for example, of a delay, I can hold, select frame or cell one, go to the very end here, minimize that, select shift and select the last one, and I can control the delay on any of this quality for all of them. For example, what if I said 1 second delay? Well, this is not going to work very well because it's going to be too jumpy. See? It's losing that illusion, right? Or with them all selected, I could say no delay at all. Oh, it wants me to select them all. Select the firsts, select the last, no delay at all, 0 seconds, and it'll play faster. And if I want to accent speed, let's see when it's actually going its fastest here, when it's falling through the sky. Okay, here, here, there. What if I took this one cell here and just trashed it? Delete that one frame. Like this one here, delete that frame. So it's almost more excited to see, now it looks like it's falling even faster, which is accenting the squash. And I'm not done yet. I could keep playing with this. For example, you've seen some of these tools here, like I can do a blur tool or a smudge tool. Let's go with a smudge. Watch what I'm going to do with the smudge tool too. Now I can select not just the cell or the frame, but also the layer and add a little illusion of blur. In the direction that it's traveling. Well, obviously it's moving slow here. So this one here needs to have lots of smudge to basically called the dry brush technique in animation. To accent just how fast we're going here. You see this in a lot of manga animation where you get those whooshes of movement. So I'm just literally treating each one of these layers and frames as pages on a book or in a flip. By smearing it. And that will accent the smoothness of the animation process itself. Let's go back, let's stop there and let's hit play now. So watch the speed exaggerated. See that? So you eliminate, when you do a lot of dry brush and whoosh and smooshes like that, swooshes, you don't need as many drawings. More drawings, slower speed. Fast speed, less drawings. And I could just keep on going here. Just do something like this. Grab a gray, small brush now. Oops, let's get the brush rather. And now I could even exaggerate now on my hits and impacts. So when it hits and it makes an impact here, I could even just keep drawing on this and saying, all right, right there, there, right? But then I go to the next one, and my next one, the secret is now have these traveling further away. Go to the next one, you're now traveling further away. I could even play around with opacity shift with my brush so that now they're completely gone until I hit again. This is now smacking again. Next frame, they're now traveling further away. Next frame, they're basically off page. So watch by adding those little bit of impact hits, those little impact sketches. Now watch when it hits the ring. Bam, see that? Bam. So you can see just how easy it is to add animation. And if I actually now, I could go back to every drawing here, I could add arms and legs to this thing, make it look like a frog or something. I could add eyeballs and expressions. And this is also how, when you saw like adding arms, imagine if you take the video of, I don't know, your cat, and you can then bring that in as individual frames or convert your video to layers. And then you could just turn on the eyeball in process and then paint and animate right over top of footage or images. Now, something that people make a mistake though when they're doing this is they go to do something like, let's just say right here, okay? And let's just say here, I'm like, oh, you know what? Let's put a tank of water in. So to do that, I'm gonna add a layer. I'll just call this water or something like that, just so it stands out. And oops, let's say blue. Okay. Now you notice it added it to all of them. Okay, but watch if I say, yeah, but I want that opacity to be less to make it look like it's semi-transparent. Well, you noticed opacity only applied it here to this frame that I was stopped on. So a lot of times when you make changes further down your frames here, it only applies that to the one, but that's kind of neat that you can apply opacity as its own option and it will apply it only to that. So if I were to come here, let's say, and say, yeah, well, I want that to be opacity, you can see that they're actually different opacity. So how do you remedy that? I'm going to select all my layers at once, hold shift and select them, turn off the eyeball, go all the way back to frame 1 now, turn that eyeball on. When you turn the eyeball on at frame 1 in your timeline, it applies it to all of them. Okay, but you see here now, the problem, of course, is that these are still holding on to their opacity shift. So I'm going to put those back to where they need to be full. Go back to my frame 1 here. And whatever we do to frame 1, you see affects all the layers beyond that because I kind of reset it all. And let's see, what's my opacity here? I'll leave it at 38%. And knowing that, 38%, I could even come down and find some bizarre brushes in here, like, let's see, do I have splashes, fog, fireflies, special effects, brushes, splatter? I'll go with the splatter then. And even here in my opacity, I'll tell this to be 38%. And now even as it breaches the water here, right, I can find that one cell right there. And oops, let's make that be a little smaller. Okay, go to the next frame. These are now going to be over here somewhere. Go to the next frame, and they're pretty much off screen. So just right there, you can see where I'm hitting the water, splattering, they're moving away, and they're going away like that. And that's kind of a neat little effect there that you can keep going. So here, it hits, breaches, let's find the right frame there. These are traveling further away now until they're heading off screen. So playback, and you see now the effect we get. Okay. So good kind of thing to remember is if we are going to add frames after the fact or add layers, artwork after the fact, it's almost best to do it back at 1 because 1 controls everything forward. So now I'm going to create a layer here. go back to my brush. Let's just have some stupid fun here with making pass. Okay, and I'm just going to do that. Another layer. Another layer. Layer. So what am I making here, guys? I'm making a bird fly across the screen. Just wings up, wings down. All right? Very simple, but all these layers I just added now at 1 have been added. So let's go ahead and take them away. And find a section, let's say frame 7. Activate on, 8, on, 9, on, 10, on, 11, on, 12, etc. I think I may have, see, that was, yeah, I jumped the fish there. There we go. Right? And then off again. And then I can come down here and repeat that process. On. Same one. Okay. And watch now when I play, and now I've got the illusion of a bird flying across my screen. Now, if I wanted that bird to go behind the ball at that point, I would have to literally take those layers and put them beneath the ball. Again, I want to add a sky in here. Back to my 1. I'm here, add a layer. Right? Unlock my background there, swap it with my layer. And let's go ahead and put in a gradient here. Look, I've already got a sky gradient ready to go. Oh, that's my problem. Remember, my layer here was a white background. Well, I can get rid of that white, or I can play around here with a type of overlay to let it show through. But that now tells me, oops, now I need to come in and find my background and fill in my cliff. So I could keep working here. I could put clouds in the sky that are moving the opposite direction. I could add more character to this ball. So instead of just being a simple ball, I could do things like shadows. I could do all, but literally just drawing frame by frame in this layers so that whatever picture I want to appear is use the eyeball to make it appear. Now this, how do we save this? This is just saved as a PSD. Bouncing ball. Make sure I go to my correct folder here for my GIFs. PSDs for Git, and I'll call it bouncing ball. You see, I've already got one there saved. You save it, and that is just a PSD. That's how we work with it. When it's time, though, to make it into an actual functioning GIF, this is the process, and you've seen this before. File. If I go save as, it's not going to give me GIF as an option. I have to go into the export here. And you see export as PNG. No, I can export as, but that's not correct either. Remember when we saved the JPEG to under 100K, we used save for web legacy. And then we had to change it to JPEG, right? But the first option it gave us was actually a GIF. Okay. And you can see right now, it's giving me an estimate here that the GIF is going to be 290K, very, very lightweight. It's going to be a 640 by 640. And the looping options for the animation are going to be forever. Now, these are the colors it's using here. If I want to, I could simplify my layers down, or I could use some of these, different types, like adding pattern or noise and diffusion to get some interesting, like that's where you see a meme or a GIF and it's got all those little dots that make it up. It's actually using, different types here of compression. Now it's only going to show it to me, of course, if I had more color. I don't have a lot of color in here, so it's not really giving me, gradation color. It's not really giving me much here on the diffusion. So I'll just say no, dither. We also get the ability of doing transparency. So if I did like an animated emoticon, or if I was making an animated element that I wanted to animate on a email, and I wanted it to be whatever color the background of the email is, I can literally make a transparent GIF. Now, I don't have one here, so I could just turn that off, but it is on by default because GIFs hold the alpha channel of transparency like a PNG. Looks good. I can preview it. I could even preview it in the browser of choice, or I could just hit save. Now, this is where it's interesting here. Let me go ahead and make sure I'm in the right folder, which is the GIF animations. Okay, and this would of course be called last name animated GIF. And you see the format options give us a couple choices. HTML and images, images only, HTML only. So for a lot of you that are always like, oh my God, I don't understand programming or CSS or some of this language that's associated with the internet, browsers and all that. Well, GIFs allow us to save in a programmable code if we need it. So if you need to just post this on a website or embed it into an email, we could literally just do HTML only or HTML and images, which gives us a folder of the image, plus it gives us the code. But for our purposes here, I only want images only. That's it. I hit save. That saves it off. Let's go into our folder to see what it gives us. And you see, here it is as a file. Now, I'm not sure if, I think Macs may actually play this as it is, but if I double click this now, you can see I'm playing it just in my photo gallery and it just loops infinitely, right? So I can play it there, or I can right click and play it and open this with, well, Internet Explorer or Google Chrome, and you see how it plays inside the browser. Now, this is why we're doing 640 by 640, by the way, because a lot of people, when they think, oh, I'm going to make it, really large. Well, I don't want it to be larger than this. See, I want it to fit on my screen. You can even make it smaller if you wish, but that is 640 by 640 animated GIF. And you see how it kind of plays and loops and keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. And that would allow me now to, like, again, upload it to Facebook or upload it to Twitter or Instagram as that kind of animatable GIF. So that's pretty neat. All right, let me go ahead and close that a second. And I'm just going to go now to open, because another way we can animate this is, well, let's just use some basic elements here. So here I've got, look here, what is this? This is just a photo of some vans. And what have I done? I've simply selected the red color and duplicated that to now being green and different colors in each layer, just by copying and pasting. So you see now, we then can create a series of, oh, I also have some text here. So let me go ahead and get rid of the end here. I'm going to show you this first. Just get rid of those and trash that in. Because you see, this is something I've already done and saved. So if I hit play, you see, maybe it's an advertisement. Maybe this is going on a giant screen, TV screen inside the van store or a shop where they're like, hey, why would we just hang a poster when we can have an animatable poster that plays back on a big TV screen or something? So all I'm doing is just activating the eyeball for each colored layer. Watch what I'm going to do now, because there is something here I've got, which if I turn on the eyeball here, is this word Vans. But watch what I'm going to do with this now. Okay, I'm actually going, because this is its own layer with the word Vans. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it so it's just off screen for this one frame. Now let's go with a new frame. I'm going to pull it down a little further. And I'm going to turn off the brown. Let's make a new frame. Pull it down even further. Eyeball off that purple. New frame. Turn off the blue. Move this up again towards the top. Frame. Turn off the purple. Move this up a little further. Turn off the teal. Move it up a little further. New frame. Turn off that. Move this completely off screen. Okay, and I'll go new frame here and just turn that off there to get the orange. So what you've basically seen me do now, which is different than just straight up animating and using the eyeball, is that you saw me move a layer in either the X or the Y axes. I can move layers and animate stuff up and down and side to side. Let's play it back. See? So animatable GIFs in Photoshop allow you to control animating of position. Okay, we already saw it could animate opacity. Well, remember in After Effects when we opened up the options for animating something, it gave us anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. However, here in Photoshop, when it comes to animating, all we can do that will automatically keyframe layer frame by frame is position and opacity. We cannot do scale and we cannot do rotation. Let me show you what I mean here. So let's say right about here at the end, okay, I'm going to just go ahead and duplicate that layer again. And what if I wanted to shrink down the Vans logo, right? Make it smaller. Well, what you'll notice is it shrunk it down for every layer, see, or every frame, see that? So scale is not keyable inside of Photoshop. What if I were to rotate this at this one frame? You'll notice that all of them rotated. So you cannot key rotation. Well, how on earth then do we actually do that? Well, in order to do that, we would need to have duplicates of those layers scaled or rotated. Let me show you what I mean. Okay, so let me just close that down there and open up a different one. Like I say, these are all PSDs I've already created. Let's see, the cat forgetting is usually what I use to explain this. So again, I have this simple little JPEG that I cut up. Go ahead, create frame animation. Okay, and what is this layers here? I've got the mouse layer, I've got the left eye, I've got the right eye, I have the cat, I got a left wing, and I have a right wing. So imagine if I was to select the mouse, right? Remember, we can key with position here, make a new frame, move my mouse into it, make a new frame, move my mouse into it, make a new frame, move my mouse, make a new frame, move the mouse, and so on. So I've created 7 frames, play it back, and my mouse is moving across the screen, just that easy. It keys movement from the layer in the frames. Now let's go to the cat, okay? And all I'm gonna do with this cat here is skip 1, move the cat up, skip 1, move the cat down, skip one, move the cat up, and then back to here. So now I get the illusion of the cat moving around. Okay, I'm gonna just get rid of these eyes. The wings, however, okay, like I've already showed you, if I wanted to rotate this wing from one frame to another, you're going to notice that that wing does not keyframe on that rotation setting. So if I want the wings to rotate, I will go to frame one here, and I'm now going to need duplicates up. So I'm just duplicating the layer, and I will now take Command T. This will be my wing up. The one on the bottom will be my wing down. Whoops, wrong layer. All right. So in order to do rotation, we have to have the layer duplicate. Now I can go to the beginning and say, what wing do I want to start? Well, we'll start with a low wing, see? Then I'll go to the next frame. That will be the middle wing. I'll go to the third frame. That will be the up wing. Go here. This would be back to the middle. Go here. This would be back to the down. Go here. This would be back to the middle. Go here. This would be back to the up. And I really should have an extra cell here or frame. Now you see how I can create the illusion of rotation, but we have to use duplicates. Pretty neat. Back to the beginning. What else can we do? And again, if it was scale, it would have to be the same thing as well. I'm going to go back to the beginning frame. And now I'm going to duplicate the right wing three times, twice. So I now have 3 of my right wings. Now, what am I going to do with this? Well, remember, we do have the ability of even doing puppet warps. So I could say, yeah, puppet warp, lock this wing here, come up here, and repose this wing in the up position. Apply. So I'm puppet warping that wing into the shape I want. One in the middle is going to stay the same. The one on the bottom is going to be the down. So this one's going to be my down wing. Okay? And apply. So I can deform and distort if it's its own layer. I'm going to say, okay, I think it's supposed to be the down, right? So I'm starting in the down, moving to the up or the middle, going to the up, coming back here to the middle, move it, going to the down, going back to the middle, and going to the up. So now I hit play, and you see now using the puppet warp, I can exaggerate and deform, but I have to have a duplicate version of that. And the same thing happens again if I wanted to do scale. I would have to have a duplicate version. If I'm going to change the color, I'm going to have a duplicate version. Go back to the beginning here. Now, on top, I'm going to make a new layer. Let's just call this lasers. Okay. And I can have some fun here. Okay, and I'm just going to put lasers in the eyes. I can even play around with my blending modes because these are also adaptable with the, just like opacity, I can also use blending. Let's go with the duplicate layer. Come here. And I'm just going to start drawing my lasers out. Duplicate layer, move to the next frame. Okay, remember what version we were doing here. That's lighten. Okay, let's go with duplicate layer. Oh, I just realized I was duplicating layers. Hold on a second. I have to adjust that. Yeah, it's going to be a new layer. Lighten. Gosh into this just to soften it up. Okay. And that's also needs to be a light. But you see, I need to go back to the beginning here though and deactivate all those lasers. So the first one is just going to be, let's actually turn that off there. Here, lasers. Obviously, that layer needs to be moved up. This one here now is going to be that copy there. Just rotate it better. Go. Next layer. Yes, I actually have an extra one here I can get rid of. Turn off those. This one here will be this one. This one here will be the last one. And then, of course, none. Just really quickly, you can see where I'm laser catting my mouse. So you can see how quickly, whether you're hand drawing animation, whether you're using Photoshop layers, how you can create content, not unlike the way you would make a photograph come to life by cutting up the layers, or a motion comic, or what we did with the moped and the dog and all that stuff. Point is simply, you can control this in Photoshop, but if you're going to only do position or opacity or other blending mode, those can be keyed, so you don't need to make a duplicate of the layer. But if you're going to rotate or if you're going to scale, you have to have a duplicate version of it. Now, this is kind of neat here because, like I said, this is currently transparent background, right? So if let me just show you, export, save for the web legacy. Okay, I'm going to leave transparency on or activated. And just hit, now this is 640 by 640. Guess what? If I unlink this, I can make this be a 640 just by doing that, because I've got my top and bottom empty. Let's go ahead and hit save. Okay, let's say, instead of animated GIF, I'll just call this at image only, save. And it did look like it stretched it a little bit, which is not what I was looking for. But now again, it looks like it's on a white background because by default in your viewer here, transparent backgrounds are going to appear that way. But if I open this in certain browsers, it may put it on a black background. No, that's still putting it on a white. Let's do that. In fact, watch this. Come on, go away. There we go. Watch what I can do here even. I'm just going to drag this into my browser here to do the copy. There, you saw that transparency for a second where it showed it against gray. Again, if you play this on a Mac, or if you look at this on a Mac, it'll actually give you a black thumbnail background for what is transparent. If I was to embed this into a web page or an email that had a different color background, it would, of course, put that on that colored background. Pretty neat stuff. So unlimited potential, what we can do here with this. Let me go ahead and close that. No. Go ahead and open and find another PSD, because again, let's just open this animation I did. Okay, so here's this frog. You can see all the different layers. So instead of just something as simple as that, You see, I've got, just like the bouncing ball, I'm using some smear and some smudge. I have to have, because this is scaling up. Is it different versions of it? Yeah, see, I actually just scaled it up as a different layer so that it gives the illusion of it opening up. Even his little eye blink at the very end, if you go frame by frame, there is just two little dots covering up his eyes, see, to reveal a blink. Again, it's so neat here. I could even come here and just say, hey, duplicate that one and rearrange it. Take this one, duplicate it, put that at the end. And now just that quickly, I've repeated the loop of the blink. See, now he's got two blinks. And you notice these are actually held at 0.2. So the open eye is held for 2, which almost makes me want to duplicate that one and put that one to the end. There's even ways here where you can do what's called a twin or a tweening. So you see, this is pretty much a pretty extreme jump here. But if I select these two, I can even do what's called a twin or a tween and just add one frame between that selection, taking position, opacity, and any effects into it. Okay, between the selected layers. No, that didn't do right because you see this one is not correct. So let's do twin between all layers, one frame, and you see what it will do is now add one frame to blend those together to get to that one, which can be used to create some smoother movement. See? So I've got that little blending twin right there. Tween.